Oh, creators of Avatar The Last Airbender, you make creating a masterpiece look so simple.
Oh, hello there. How are you all doing today? My name is Mr. S. Welcome back to my channel. In case you haven't noticed it, I do have quite a thing for books. Books in almost any form and any variety. And in particular, one of my favorite things is to collect books about art. Usually involving techniques for creating art, but also books that embody a particular thing that I love so much about art. I actually made a video about this a little over a year ago about my book, my favorite art book collection at that time. Since then, my collection has changed quite a bit, and in particular, I went on just a little bit too long about each and every book that was on that video, so I'm gonna do it again. This time I'm gonna go through almost all of them in my collection, usually involving a particular theme around which each of the books can be categorized. And also I'm gonna go a little bit faster, try to get this done a little bit quicker so I can get more of them in there so you can see a little bit more of the kind of stuff that I like and maybe some stuff that you might want to check out for yourself. The first genre of books that we're going to be looking at all fit the theme of revolving around not the work of one particular artist, but the work involving one particular subject matter, be that a video game, a TV show, or just a particular theme of art. So, let's have a quick look at all of these. They're so heavy. First, Avatar The Last Airbender, the Art of the Animated Series. I love this show with all my heart and soul, and I just love seeing all the concepts and design work that went into creating the series. I love seeing all the different designs they had for each and every character. You can see just how well everything was thought out from the get-go as much as possible. And it's just super, super cool to look through and see just how everything came together. Next, Udon's Art of Capcom. This particularly pertains to the company Udon and all of the artwork they did for a lot of Capcom's games like Street Fighter, Darkstalkers, Rival Schools, all of that good stuff. It's so insanely cool to have a collection of all of this exceptionally cool artwork. It's really good for me to just look through and if I want like a pose reference or just some kind of lighting reference or muscle reference, these are highly exaggerated, but they really do help get my artistic soul ablaze. Next is Gothic Art Now, unfortunately not featuring the dust jacket. This one I like because sometimes I like to have just some real dark subject matter or some real just intense pieces of art that if I'm feeling in that particular mood, if I'm feeling a little bit macabre or a little bit on the dark side, then this is a really neat one to flip through and get some either inspiration or just get some fuel for the nightmares tonight if I'm having too few of those. Next is my 2 volumes of the Art of World of Warcraft, one of which for the Burning Crusade and one for Wrath of the Lich King. I like these ones because I really like the art of World of Warcraft. I think the designs are awesome. I love the intense amount of detail you see inside here. I like that they have a nice balance between monsters, weapons, and environments. And in particular, I wanted Wrath of the Lich King just because the Lich King is probably my favorite designed character in almost any video game that I have ever seen. He is so insanely cool. The Burning Crusade I got because it was cheap, and because it also features some pretty nifty stuff too, but the Lich King is where it's at for me. Next, we have The Art of Alice Madness Returns. So, this is an interesting case where the art book is way better than the actual game that came out of it. You look at this art book with all of its incredible colors, all of its extremely detailed character designs and environment work, all the insanely creative things that were going on in here, and then you remember that the game is just kind of extremely bland. So this is a really good example of concept art and the actual execution not being super great, but the art book itself is a work of splendor, and I highly recommend checking out a copy if you can, though this is one of the rarest books that I now own. I don't know how this book has gotten to be so insanely expensive, so I guess I have something extremely valuable, both financially and emotionally. Then, of course, we got the big boy itself, Legend of Zelda Art and Artifacts. Legend of Zelda will always be a series that means a lot to me, like emotionally, and I love that this book is all art all the time. It goes through pretty much every single Legend of Zelda game there is, and just shows you all the cool stuff from every single one of them. It shows all the distinctive styles that each of the games adopts, and I have my favorites and I have my not so favorites, but I love that they're all given roundabout equal presentation here. My personal favorite style, as controversial as it may be, is Skyward Sword. I just love how the artwork for that series turned out, with A Link Between Worlds being a close second. Now we're going to get into the majority of my collection, which is art books relating to the work of one particular artist. And as you can see, we have a lot to get through, and these are very heavy, so let's just go ahead and move on. First, we have all of the artwork related to the master oil painter himself, Boris Vallejo. I love how Vallejo utilizes color and shading and light in all of his paintings. Essentially, he breaks almost all of the conventional rules regarding painting, and especially in terms of light and shadow, and that's what I love about it, is that he makes it very clear, and especially the book Mirage, that he had to learn the rules and then broke them to make the best pieces that he could, or that he wanted to make. And it really shows through in just how stunningly rendered all of these paintings are. Like I said, these are not digital. These are hand-painted oil portraits. Oh, it's so crazy to look through all of this. It's so amazing. Also, be forewarned, a lot of his work features naked females, so if that offends you, don't check it out. Next is a book that I am insanely happy that I got before it ended up being stupidly expensive, Dragon Girl and Monkey King, The Art of Katsuya Terada. I ranted and raved about how great this book was in the last one, so I'm not going to go into too much more detail here, except that Katsuya Terada is the artist's artist. He never stops drawing. He never stops just making artwork, doodles, full paintings, full pictures, it doesn't matter. He just keeps drawing and keeps trying to improve, but mostly he just creates because he needs to create. And that's just like an unrestrained faucet of ideas just spewing out, something that all of us artists really strive to try to do, just make art, and he does. Next is the rather fascinating book for the art of Amanda Connor. She's an artist that I didn't really know about until she burst onto the scene with Power Girl for DC Comics with Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, and I was able to pick up her art book for cheap, and it was really interesting to see that her current style was not how she always drew, and it was really interesting to see this book kind of show the progression of her art from beginning to currently. I don't like her style as much in the older stuff that she made, but I can appreciate how it got her to where she is now, and I love her style now. It's extremely distinct and very cool to look at. She's one of those artists that does facial expressions better than almost any other comic book artist that I've seen. You can easily tell what's going on in each character's mind just by looking at their faces. Then we have another book that I just kind of picked up because the cover looked interesting. We have The Art of a Man Named Ladron. And he does a book series called Hip Flask and also works on something called The Elephant Men. Knew nothing about any of those, but when I looked inside, I was really glad that I had bought it. He has such an incredible sense of detail and meticulous line work, and he has an obsession with getting every single line and every single shadow just perfectly in every single thing that he does. His process is just so fascinating to witness, and to see just how much work he puts into everything before he even starts doing the final product. I don't think I could work as hard as this guy does. I feel lazy looking through this stuff. Then we have The Art of Sunken Rock. I don't particularly like the series that this art book is from, but I bought it because I really wanted to have an art book of the artist's work, whose name is Boichi. His work is so incredibly cool. Oh, the way he renders shadows and colors when he does his colored work, the way that he completely changes his rendering style when he does black and white. It's so almost unfair just how good his stuff looks. I could just look at this art book all day long. I mean, come on, just look at that. Next, another manga artist, Tite Kubo, the all color but the black, the art of Bleach. I like this art book in particular because it encompasses a lot of the color pages, or almost all the color pages, from the beginning of Bleach all the way up through the end of the Soul Society arc, which is basically where my collection of Bleach ends. That's when I think the art was the best, that's when I think the story was the best, and this art book is a great representation of why I love his really angular, very cool style. The way he executes colors, his character's expressions, the detail he puts in, you have no trouble identifying a Tite Kubo drawing, and that's one of the best things you can say about any artist, just recognizing them on sight. Then we have Nosh, I think that's how you say it, the art of D. Gray Man. This is a series I've never read. I bought it because the book was pretty cheap, and I really ended up liking the style. I like the very noir and gothic sensibilities that it's got. I like the experimental ways that things are drawn and colored. It almost seems like he's just wildly experimenting with different ways of inking and coloring with almost every single one of these illustrations. I almost wonder if some of these use watercolor, or if they're just using Copic markers, which is what they usually use. I just really appreciate the experimentation in all of this artwork. It's very intriguing to look at. Next, we have the 3-part series of Yoshitaka Amano's Art of Final Fantasy, known as The Sky. In terms of sheer presentation, this set wins out over anything else that I own. And I still love it, probably the best of any art book that I have to this day, just because of how not like anything else I've ever seen it is. Just because of how much this doesn't look like anybody else could have made it. This is pure Yoshitaka Amano right here, and I can't really put it into better words than I did before, but he just has this way of making seemingly unfinished pieces of art look completely done, like there's nothing else that could be done to them. I don't know how he does that, because some of these things are little more than scratchy illustrations, but what else could be done to them? I can't think of anything. I've looked through these books numerous times now, and I cannot ever get over just how much joy it gives me to look at these, to see just even a small portion of how immensely creative this man truly is. There's a reason he's one of the most popular fantasy artists in Japan. And lastly, and certainly not least, we have Irikyo Oda's One Piece Color Walks 1 and 2. These are all of the color spreads that he did for One Piece from the beginning up until, I believe, close to the end of volume 25. This is when I liked his art style the best. His characters, again, very distinctive, very cartoony, but I just really like the pleasing and more simplified look of Oda's artwork in these earlier chapters of One Piece. I think this is when his artwork was the strongest. I think it got a little bit too cluttered and a little bit too busy and scratchy for my taste, especially after about the halfway point after the time skip. And this is when I think his art was the best for me personally. So I'm really happy to have it right here. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There is pretty much every single art book that I own, minus of course the how to draw books. That can be another video in and of itself, but I just kind of wanted to give another hopefully faster rendition of my favorite art books and why I love them so much, and maybe I inspired you to get some of the ones that you saw here, or at least check out their stuff, and let me know in the comments below if you have any particular favorite artists or favorite genres that you have art books from. I'd love to hear. So in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this video, and until next time, have yourselves a very good day. Okay, I need to read this again.